Welcome, everyone. I now call the November 19th, 2024 regular City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's better when I turn that on. At this point, we'll take a moment to take a roll call of the council members by position number. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name. City clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Zorns. Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Alderks.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt.
Here.
Kurt. Thank you. Councilmember Menke.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra.
Here.
All present with the exception of Councilmember Zorns, who is absent and excused.
Thank you so much. Before we continue with the rest of the agenda, I'd like to reiterate some guidelines. For remote meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently. Mute your microphone when not speaking. And for council attending remotely, use the raise hand feature when you wish to speak. First item on our agenda is meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to the meeting agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public engagement opportunities. We have the Startup 425 Startup and Small Business Co-working here on Wednesday, December 4th from 10:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. at City Hall. You can join for a dynamic day of co-working for local entrepreneurs, founders, and business owners. We've got the Career in Law Enforcement Workshop on Wednesday, December 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Police Department Community Room right across the street. You can join Bothell Police for a free, no-pressure workshop that demystifies the law enforcement hiring process. Registration is required. We have council conversations on Thursday, December 5th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the North Creek Schoolhouse at Centennial Park. It's an informal event to chat and connect with city council members in a casual conversational setting, and refreshments will be served. Moving on to public comment. The city has accepted public comment in writing as well as accepted sign up for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the clerk calls your name, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that council will receive your input, but we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make note of items requiring follow-up. And City Clerk, I don't know if you can speak to folks that are here to speak to the public hearing versus public comment. You got it. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the mayor is correct. We have a number of people signed up to speak under the public hearing, which is regarding the comp plan and zoning. But we also have regular public comment right now. So what I'm going to call for is public comment on anything that is not the comp plan. And for that, I have one person signed up to speak, and that is Mark Swanson, who is virtual with us tonight. If you are here to speak on anything other than the comp plan, now's your time, and you can go to the podium and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. Mr. Swanson, there you are. Can you hear us?
I can, Laura. Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
So, Hennepin County was an unusual study for me. They were covered in the New York Times. Hennepin County had a problem, affordable housing problem, racial inequity. And so the geniuses at the New York Times lauded their decision back in 2020 to get rid of single-family resident zoning completely. They made it illegal. It went into effect a little later in 2020. And all the New York Times, they talked about how wonderful it was, how it's going to improve housing equity. They talked about what it was going to do to increase the economic vibrancy of the city, the resilience, how it's going to reduce climate, greenhouse gases. No, that was a big deal. Hennepin County, it's about a little denser than what we are, but it wasn't that much worse. Hennepin County is where the city of Minneapolis lies. So 2 years after they made single-family residence zoning completely illegal, and 2 years of building increased urban density and hurting neighborhoods, today we find they didn't improve affordable housing. The city's going into debt. They didn't afford home equity. The crime has more than doubled in just 2 years. You know, that's the place George Floyd died. The town is steadily going into debt because, like Bothell, their major expense is in police and fire and providing public safety, which is most of the reason all this urban density doesn't work, is because it drives the townships into debt for servicing pensions. It happens all over the country. And guess who advised Minneapolis for this laudable plan, according to the New York Times? None other than Urban 3, who our favorite character and planner, Carrie Westerbeck, keeps asking the council to review as a good suggestion when we've outbuilt our traffic infrastructure. We're going to get into trouble. You can't make it from West Hill down to downtown Bothell in 10 minutes at 3 p.m. It's crazy. So, violent crime now in Minneapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Your time is up. Mr. Swanson, thank you.
Urban 3.
That is all I have for the regular public comment. Is anybody here that wants to speak to anything other than the comprehensive plan? Is anybody in the virtual audience wishes to speak to anything other than the comp plan public hearing tonight? I'm not seeing anybody else. We will get to you shortly, I promise.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. Excuse me. Next up is reports, and I'm going to kick it over to the city manager to tell us what we got.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and good evening, City Council, and good evening to those who did come for the public hearing. We do appreciate you turning out and coming to share your thoughts with the City Council. To keep things brief, we do have a previously scheduled outside presentation, and then also we will have a pause after that just to see if there's any final questions on the preliminary budget. But primarily, the City Manager report will be an outside presentation tonight from the King County Regional Homeless Authority. And we are going to first turn things over to our staff member, Anand Mantrapaganda, our Human Services Coordinator, who will tee things up and introduce our guest tonight. Anand, thank you so much.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. My name is Anand, and I'm the Human Services Coordinator for our city. I'm joined today by Nigel Herbick, the Intergovernmental Relations Manager for the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. Nigel is here today to share some updates from the authority.
You gonna run slides? Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. Unfortunately, my colleague Abby Anderson, who was supposed to join tonight, was unable to join us, so you just get me. Tonight we're going to cover a few different things. We're going to cover some leadership updates at KCRHA, a little bit on the North King County ILA annual report, and then severe weather. So there have been a lot of changes at KCRHA in the last few months. We are really excited to welcome our new permanent CEO, Dr. Kelly Kennison. She comes to us from Housing and Human Services in Washington, D.C., when she has incredible experience navigating the federal government, and she's bringing that experience here, and she is setting a new tone at work. We have some late breaking news since I sent these slides in. We actually do have somebody coming on board for our deputy CEO. That is Simon Foster. This was just announced yesterday. Simon comes to us from King County, where he worked at the Department of Community and Human Services as the division director for housing, homelessness, and community development. He's bringing 18 years of experience in the field to us. He'll be joining in January. We have a new chief program officer, Irene Augustin. She's joining us from Baltimore, where she was the director of the Mayor's Office of Homelessness there, and before that she was at the director of coordinated entry and problem solving at the City and County of San Francisco. So she has 20 years of experience coming in to our programs area. We have a new chief finance officer who James Rouse. He had been a temporary hire, and we're really happy to have him on permanently. Dr. Monica Gross is our Director of Planning and Special Projects. She comes from Alaska, brings a lot of severe weather experience to us, which is really important. And as you can imagine, severe weather in Alaska is fairly severe. And we have Arlene Hampton, who is joined this summer as the Director of Homeless Investments, oversees all of our contracts with our providers, and she brings experience working for those providers. And then actually one last bit of late-breaking news that didn't make it on the slide is we actually do have somebody coming in for our Chief of Equity and Impact. Her name is Termini Fentress. She's joining next month. She is coming from Plymouth Housing, where she's currently the Senior Director of Health Equity Research and Policy Development. We're just really excited after having essentially a year with interim leadership. It is really exciting to get the leadership filled out and to have permanent leadership at the top. So we're happy to share that. All of you should have received as part of the North King County interlocal agreement that the North King County City signed on to. One of the agreements is that we send in an annual report. Staff has that. I believe you all have that too. But it goes through, this is what it covers in general. Tonight I'll be covering some of the pieces that we did well and pieces where we identified some improvements that we could make, as well as severe weather. So some key accomplishments here over the last year. We have been able to work really closely with a lot of the providers and offer technical assistance. In particular, and this will sound awfully mundane, but it's important to our providers, all of the invoices are complete and paid in a much quicker manner than they were a couple years ago, which is great for our providers. All of our providers also have a dedicated contract monitor for them at KCRHA, and they get proactive monitoring and support. We are making a pivot right now. We are changing our grants management system from something called Flux to Salesforce. I believe this will be happening probably end of this year. We're working out some kinks on it right now. We're giving trainings to all of our providers so that they can successfully make that transition. And we're looking forward to that because the previous system was not getting us what we needed and was causing a lot of confusion for our providers. Something really interesting that just came to completion is called the HMIS Inventory Enhancement Project. HMIS is the Homelessness Management Information System that is mandated by HUD that we all have, which shows all of the beds that we have and all of this. For the first time, we actually have real-time information on where beds are available, and providers can see that too and refer people in practically real time, which is a big step in the right direction and is a long time coming. Of course, we're really proud of the work we did with the North King County Severe Weather Shelter. I'll touch on that a little bit later. And, one of the things that I think we've done well in North King County is our interactions with we have regular touch points with all the human services managers throughout North King County, as well as, there's wonderful groups in North King County. I might be a little biased, but you have the North King County Coalition on Homelessness and the North Urban Human Services Alliance, and they are a great partner with us, along with the human services managers and other groups in North King County. There are some areas that we are working to improve. We are trying to find new and sustained sources of revenue. Like a lot of folks, a lot of one-time funding came in over COVID to fund various shelters or services. As you all know, that money is going away end of this year, into next year. And so there's a lot of work being done right now to transition those over to more stable and ongoing funds. We're working at really making sure that we're getting tailored programming for North King County, figuring out where the service gaps are in the county and meet the needs of folks up here. We are engaging with providers and partners on a procurement process to make sure that, again, what we're bringing to North King County makes sense for North King County. We're working to widen the pool of providers in North King County. As you probably know, there's only a handful of providers that actually serve North King County, and that can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. So we are working on both bringing groups that maybe don't have all of the requisite paperwork taken care of to actually contract with government to get them the technical assistance that they need to get to the place where they can compete in RFPs when we put them out, and also bring groups that maybe haven't worked in North King County into North King County to provide services. And of course, severe weather. There's things that we, even though it is one of our high points, there are things that we could do better there. We are hoping to change the model a little bit, not this year, but going forward, sometime in the future, where we'll be hopefully co-locating the severe weather response with other services directly, so that folks have a more direct connection to services when they come in from the cold. And we're also hoping to move away from and again, this won't be happening this year, but we are hoping to be moving away from the activation model with severe weather where, the cold reaches a certain point for a certain number of days and we activate. That is what we're able to do currently, but we do know that things would be much more effective and people would have more certainty if we were able to just open up severe weather shelters from, say, like November through March or something like that. That is something we're looking at and something we'd hope to move towards. And we do need to improve transportation for folks that are trying to reach the North King County Severe Weather Shelter, which is located in Shoreline and can be a bit of a haul for folks, on this side, from Bothell or Woodinville to make it over there. This graph right here just kind of shows some of the program performance in North King County. The thing that jumped out at me when I first saw this and raised a little bit of concern with me was you'll see that in 2021, so when it says exits to PH, the bottom line for each year, that's exits to permanent housing. And you'll notice that it looks like it drops a bit after 21, 22 going into 2023. That drop is, we believe, due to the infusion of emergency housing vouchers that we received from the federal government because of COVID in 2020 and 2021. King County was one of the most successful counties at getting those emergency housing vouchers out of the door and getting them fully leased up. We had 100% of, I think, the 1,400 that we received leased up, and we were begging the federal government to move EHVs from counties that either weren't willing to do the work or, that just weren't putting in the effort to get the EHVs leased up. Unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears. We, I think, received 12 extra ones when they reallocated within Washington state. They weren't willing to have them cross state lines for political reasons. But I think that's why you see the drop in exits to permanent housing there. The 2024 numbers are just through September, and we expect those numbers will match or go beyond what we had for 2023. So this last January, we opened up the first government-funded, professionally run severe weather shelter for North King County. There was a volunteer-run shelter run in the same location by a group of volunteers that had kind of reached the edge of kind of what they were able to do as volunteers. Things were getting a little bit more acute, and so they needed professionals to come in. And so we partnered with we got some funds from King County, and we partnered with some of the North King County cities to fund a shelter at the same location as St. Dunstan's over in Shoreline. It was only activated as a fairly mild winter, so it was only activated for 15 nights from January to March. 155 guest nights were spent there. 210 meals were served. 2 folks actually got moved into housing, which is a really big deal for us. We're really happy about that. And 14 folks were able to find ways to get to the shelter. These are everywhere from fire department driving folks over there, police, the Urban League, who is the provider there, had Lyft and Uber, vouchers, that sort of thing. And of course, everybody that was there was offered service referrals and supplies if they needed it. It was, like I mentioned, a mild winter, so there was underspend that we were able to utilize a little bit better later in the year, and I'll get to that a little later here. And we are actively talking with HopeLink right now about transportation and making transportation a little bit more reliable and certain for folks across, from Woodinville, Bothell, Kenmore, Lake Forest Park into Shoreline for those nights. But that's still being worked out right now. So currently we do work on the activation model. I don't have the exact thresholds, but when it gets to a certain temperature overnight for more than a day or so, we will activate our severe weather shelters. The QR code that you see there will take folks to our severe weather website, which when we're activated is updated twice a day because things are very fluid when we're going through an activation, with different buildings opening and closing and different things coming online. So we keep that as updated as we can. We also get the word out. We send emails to all of our government partners, hoping that they'll help spread the word. We do social media. Sometimes people do leafleting, that sort of thing. Because these are open on kind of an activation basis, it's not as certain for folks knowing when it's open, and so we really do have to rely on our partners to help us get the word out to folks who may need access to a warm place to sleep when the weather gets bad. The nice thing with us having a mild winter last year was that we had a good chunk of underspend. We didn't spend all of the funds that were put aside for the winter shelter. And we're able to work out with the Urban League, who was the provider, to expand their work into the summer when we had some particularly hot days. They came out, this is a cooling canopy that they had set out in Shoreline, handing out like cooling towels. They had misting fans there, a place for people to sit, water, food, things like that. They weren't getting as many walk-ups as they would have liked, and so they pivoted to doing direct outreach for folks, finding folks where they were, giving folks supplies, water, things that they needed to keep cool where they were. And it was relatively successful. We're looking to keep that going, I think. And that actually brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'm open to any questions.
Councilmember Dodd.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Herbig. You had mentioned that there were some partners who don't have, doing government contracts is really intimidating, and then some that just don't operate in North King County. Do you ever kind of pair those two types of providers up so that they can kind of share expertise? Like maybe there's a facility that one has and then the know-how with the other?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I think that's interesting, and I'll definitely bring that up to our programs folks. I mean, one example of us bringing a provider north is Urban League with the severe weather shelter. They hadn't operated in North King County previously. But we have been reaching out to smaller groups and trying to get them the information that they need so that they can compete, because we do want smaller buy and for organizations to be able to compete and get funding from us. And the more providers we have in the pool, the better, the better services we're going to get and the more appropriate services we're going to get. So appreciate the idea, though, and I'll pass it on to our programs folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alders.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nigel, for being here and for this presentation. I serve as the Bothell representative to the North King County Coalition on Homelessness. So I'm absolutely going to be lifting up some of the voices that I hear there in my comments tonight, especially around the efficacy of seasonal shelters over the style that we're currently using, which is the temporary activations. I'm really glad to hear that KCRHA is working to move towards seasonal shelters, because the predictability means that I think they're better utilized. And I have experience working with the seasonal shelter that functioned up in the Kenmore Bothell area through the Lake City Partners Ending Homelessness and the Kenmore Bothell Interfaith Group. And so I've seen just how effective those can be. So just really glad to see it moving in that direction. Glad to hear the update on the transition to Salesforce. I know that our providers in the area have been, waiting and wondering when that would be accomplished. And then lastly, I would just want to bring up that our coalition partners very much are interested in the sub-region coordinator model that was previously discussed. And I know that there's been leadership changes at the, at the higher levels of KCRHA, but I do know that our North King County partners are very much hoping that with the new leadership coming in and getting settled, that we can once again resume conversations and planning to have a dedicated sub-region, North King County coordinator that we can work with to address the challenges facing our region. And I'm wondering if you have any updates or knowledge of that proposal moving forward.
I don't have any updates on that currently right now. There is some restructuring happening with new leadership. There is some restructuring happening, and so some positions are being moved to different departments, and a lot of things are being moved around right now. So I can't speak to that right now. I'll have to check with staff and circle back. We might be changing some models on how we do all of that, but I need to talk with our programs folks and see what their thinking is on that. Oh, and going to the seasonal shelters thing, I will also say that we may actually get some experience with that coming up next year. It sounds like the Seattle City Council is including in their budget that they'll be approving Thursday money for a shelter to be open from November through March in North Seattle. So that could be open as early as next November, I guess next November, and could give us some experience with what that model looks like in a more concrete way.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I'd also just encourage KCRHA to reach out to, the organizations like Lake City Partners that have done that work in the past, and the rest of the county can absolutely learn from their efforts. And maybe Seattle's efforts can be informed by past experiences with seasonal shelters as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
I will just say the thing that I'm the most excited about is that it sounds like you guys are putting together a really fantastic team over there. I'm excited to hear about the new hires, and also just real-time bed available seems like a fantastic thing for providers of various sorts. So thanks for coming and giving us an update tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, City Manager, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. And so briefly as well, just as a reminder, we're in the middle of our budget season. We do have several actions tonight related to the budget. As we discussed last week, we've really addressed the questions that Council has asked since we first introduced the budget as an early concept in June, and then have been working our way through it in the fall. And so in your packet tonight, starting on page 8, is the series of remaining steps as well as questions and answers that have been asked. I will note that some of the remaining questions are also going to be answered tonight under item 8G, which is around statistics and utilization of the Regional Crisis Response Program. So I will be having an update on that along with a resolution for approval to indicate support of that budget. With that, I am happy to entertain any remaining questions that you may have thought of. Otherwise, we are anticipating bringing forward the budget for adoption on December 3rd.
I think we have had so many opportunities to ask questions and had them answered that we don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
All right. Next up is Council Committee Reports, Community Reports, and Conversations. Council members. Councilmember Curd.
Thanks. I have 2 quick items to update the Council on. I attended the Sound Cities Association's Public Issues Committee meeting last week, where the discussion revolved around 3 main topics. One was reducing traffic deaths as a regional safety action plan, public health of Seattle and King County's strategic planning process, which was interesting to hear some updates from that group, and then also on-site sewage and septic code revisions for King County, which will take into effect in January if approved by King County Council. So I have more information about those if you're interested, and feel free to reach out. The other thing that I was able to do this past week was visit a stream on Lake Sammamish that was supporting Kokanee Run as part of a tour of Raya 8, our watershed area. It was really exciting to see those fish in the river or in the stream. despite everything that they've gone through and all the improvements that have been made to make that stream healthier again, and fish passage barrier removals were successful and are working towards restoring not just Chinook salmon, but others that help our watershed be really healthy. So that was really encouraging, and I've been talking with Dr. Jansen at the University of Washington about his research and work on salmon recovery in North Creek and in local waters off the Sammamish. So stay tuned for more information about that, and I can share photos of and videos of salmon in the river, which is awesome. That's my update. Thanks.
Councilmember Mankey.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have two quick updates. The first was I attended the NLC, National League of Cities Conference last week, had a lot of good, interesting discussions with other council members of similar sized cities, talked about challenges and potential solutions that everybody's working on. So very good conversations there. I was also heavily recruited to the Transportation and Infrastructures Board. I was told that there might be opportunities to receive early information about grants for transportation and infrastructure. So I am currently thinking about whether or not that's an opportunity to join or to try out, at least to see if that's really something that we could benefit from. So that's my NLC update. And then I had the opportunity to fill in for Councilmember Zorns at LTAC today. We talked about the holiday lights. They will be wrapping the poles on Main Street for 2 blocks with lights, and then from Bothell Way up to Reeder Way as well. That install is happening tomorrow, and the lights will be on 24/7 until mid-January, so look forward to that. There's also the tree lighting on Main Street, December 7th at 4 p.m. Santa will be arriving at 5 p.m., and there will be a market in the back from 2 to 6:30 p.m. with 66 vendors. So there will also be a lot of activities on Main Street, hot chocolate, and all the fun activities. So hope to see everybody there. And the other item of note from LTAC is we got a marketing update on our city's website for visitors. Our vendor has exceeded their guarantee by over 10% already with 3 months left in the year. We've had 113,000 visitors to our tourism website, which is pretty awesome in the first 9 months of the year. So it looks like our investment there through LTAC is paying off.
Councilmember Aldrich.
Thank you, Mayor. I too was able to attend National League of Cities Conference last week and participated in a couple of sessions that I found were really interesting, but I was mainly there in my capacity as a member of the Human Development Committee. And we heard updates from them around immigration, health and well-being, and also workforce planning. And so I was able to bring home some really great resources that I've shared out to members of staff and the community as well, as we talk about, ways to continue to, bring good programming and better serve our community. So it was a really great opportunity to be there, and I was glad to be able to attend what I did. Thank you.
Councilmember Dodd.
Thank you. Last week, the city manager and I attended the Regional Crisis Response Agency update. Councilmember Aldrich was at NLC with Councilmember Mankey. So I was there as the alternate. There was a lot of information. Like, it would be pretty hard to summarize in the time we have right now. So one of us, probably city manager, given who's good at logistics, will send everybody the details that we read. But I wanted to... There were two things that really stood out to me. One was that, so 988 is newer, and there aren't like national standards for really transferring calls between 911 and 988. That's a little easier because that's like an escalation from 988 to 911, but de-escalating going down to 988 is actually even harder. So that's, obviously nobody here can solve it, but it's interesting, and I expect at some point there will be like a chance to provide input somewhere with everybody doing all these committees. So just wanted to get everybody thinking about that. And then the other thing was that the Regional Crisis Response Agency is thinking about contracting behavioral health care through the Center for Human Services, which is where the city of Bothell has a contract. And so it's just interesting that there are a lot of cities within the Racer area that are kind of doing these same things around behavioral health care. So just something to think about. And again, there's like so many more details to go over. So I highly encourage you to read that report, or Councilmember Kurt's wastewater report, whichever one calls to you.
The exciting topics. All right, next up is projected agenda discussion. Does anyone have an item they'd like to bring up? Are you going to go? No? All right. In that case, I would love a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Alcabra and a second from Councilmember Dodd to approve the consent agenda. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? City Clerk?
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alderks?
Yes.
Councilmember Kurd?
Yes.
Councilmember Mankey?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, next up is the public hearing, which I feel everybody's been waiting for us to get to. On the public hearing on the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Final Draft and associated draft Bothell Municipal Code Development Regulation Amendments. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, as you noted, it is the big item tonight. We've been working on the comprehensive plan since early 2023, and as we've talked about in the last few times that this is before in council, we're getting really close to the finish line. So with that, we do have our public hearing tonight, and I am going to introduce our Deputy Director of Community Development, Christian Getz, to do a brief overview of where we are, and then following his presentation, Mayor will have you open the public hearing. The city clerk will then take up announcing any signups that have been received as of 3 o'clock for public comment, both online and in person. And then I do believe from the questions that we were entertaining as folks entered the room, there were some who have been interested or considering speaking who were not able to sign up in advance. So I will also just, as a reminder, note that the clerk will then allow for people to raise their hand to see if there's any interest. I suspect there might be, and so then we may ask people to line up behind the podium, and speakers will have 3 minutes. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Christian to provide an overview of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. It's glad to be here again. Yes, as the City Manager mentioned, just a brief few slides to run through, just sort of recenter us as we like to do. Tonight, the action is to hold a public hearing to consider the 2024 periodic update of the comprehensive plan and the associated development regulation amendments. You've seen this slide before every single time to refresh all of our memories. Just want to kind of go back and walk through the journey that has got us to this point. So we began this comp plan update work back in 2022 with scoping and initial groundwork. Through all of these phases, the public engagement, I just wanted to note, included 14 interviews with residents, cultural organizations, providers, and others. We had initial input also pulled by an advisory group that met throughout the process with our consultant to advise on public input. We issued a citywide mailer. We held various pop-up events at the summer nights or cultural nights in Sustainamania a couple times. 3 open houses that were completed, one at the initial phase 2 section, and then 2 during the draft, when the draft was published in April and May, making sure we could answer any questions on where those were and where we were headed. That public comment period ran through April and May, and then we had a slew of public meetings throughout, over 20 with the Planning Commission, 2 public hearings with Planning Commission, 19 study sessions with City Council. A lot of faces may have changed over that time, and a lot of work went into it by staff before me. And then tonight is the public hearing with City Council to wrap that up with one other step, the legislative process, to look at the final ordinances scheduled for December 10th. The comp plan update is part of the mandatory 10-year periodic update. We have updated all of our elements, and we added this time the climate element as well as an implementation element under the new GMA requirements. We updated all of our sub-areas, including Midtown, which was formerly Lake Pleasant, and we included a series of appendices to support all of that work that took place. The preferred land use alternative, that is what we looked at to establish and achieve our growth targets that were set by the multi-county planning policies, for our housing and employment targets. We did just complete the EIS process. The final EIS notice of availability went out yesterday. That's required to be completed at least 7 days prior to final action, so we're well ahead of that. We wanted to make sure we got that out there. All of that information was included within the packet as a link to the Engage Bothell website. And importantly, really wanted to make sure that the comments that were part of the initial outreach during the draft, those were included starting on page 316 of the FEIS, and the responses to those comments were in subsection 4.2, which started on page 249. So huge documents, just want to kind of point council to those if you want to head directly there. All of that work with the comp plan, setting those policies and goals, leads to what does it look like? And that's where the zoning code, the Bothell Municipal Code, comes in. So there were various amendments that were responsive to all of these changes for density, for housing units, for employment, and that comes about through the conversations that we've had over the fall since September. And then the last little piece, just the updates. We took our combined land use and zoning map, and we pulled them apart and created the two. So we have our comprehensive map, our flume, and our zoning map. So those have all been updated as part of this process. So tonight, just looking to hold that public hearing and on both the comp plan and associated amendments, and close the hearing after. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Christian. I just have a quick question. You mentioned we have 14 elements. Can you remind us what those 14 elements are?
Oh, goodness. Off the top of my head?
Because it is a comprehensive plan, so I just want to make sure that we talk about what comprehensive means.
Right, and within the ordinance, if I happen to miss one, we will include all of those with each whereas, so they will be discussed. So our introduction, our housing, land use, climate, urban design, the natural environment, shoreline, our utilities, our capital facilities, our transportation, and there's a couple others that are
economic development.
Economic development. Thank you very much.
Parks.
And parks.
So it's not just talking about housing, it's talking about everything that also is a system, everything that works together to ensure that we have managed our growth properly.
Correct.
And another way to put that would be like, as we plan for the housing over a period of 20 years, then we're planning for all of the infrastructure necessary to support that housing over the same time period. So it's not that one is coming first and then the other, it's that we're planning this and executing it kind of all along the same timeline.
Exactly, yeah. The transportation element is specifically, as we planned out growth and projections over the next 20 years, that's where the conversations that were had to discuss, okay, what project comes next? How do we prioritize those projects? Which ones need to happen at what point to accommodate capacity needs over that long term? Yep.
All right, I'm going to ask a couple questions if nobody else has any more. I know we're obviously required by the state to do the comprehensive plan, and House Bill 1220 passed recently, which also requires us to plan for housing at all affordability levels, and that's by typology. Are we exceeding either our total growth targets or our targets at any income level?
We have built out the modeling to achieve those housing targets, creating capacity within our future land use designations that give us some flexibility in the future what we'll have to do within the first 5 years, which is new this year, is to report back on where we're seeing housing units at what affordability level. Does the comp plan or the associated development regulations miss something? Are we not moving in the right direction according to the state when we report out, and do we need to make any changes, or are we close enough to that target that we can carry on with that?
So if I understand it correctly, basically what we're trying to do with this comp plan update is simply obey the law that the state has given us, but there will be opportunity moving forward to just see how it's going and adjust with that.
That's correct.
Perfect. Deputy Mayor Alcabra asked the housing element question. Oh, actually, one more thing. In our capital, is Quan here? There he is. In our capital facilities plan, do you know roughly what percentage of that is grant funded and what the total amount is?
So our total CFP is about $440 million, and over 51% of that is grant funded, as well as partnership.
And if we don't hit our growth targets for the state, what happens to our ability to get those grants to help with all of the infrastructure upgrades that we're planning in the capital facilities plan?
If we didn't align with the required targets with this update to the comp plan and the associated development regulations, then we would not be eligible for grants. Starting in the new year. So our deadline to complete this by the end of this year, if passed, aligns us to seek grant funding, and then again we'll see kind of where we are. Assuming if we're kind of missing the mark in 5 years, there will be guidance from the state to follow to readjust and tweak as these are often what happens in the long term.
And that the capital facilities plan, is that over 6 years?
That's over a 7-year
7-year period.
Correct.
Okay, so we're looking at potentially losing out on roughly $220 million over the course of the next 7 years to invest in Bothell infrastructure if we don't meet these targets that this comprehensive plan is designed to meet.
That is a possibility, but again, a lot of uncertainties out there.
I don't expect you to have a crystal ball. That's fine. Perfect. And no, my only other comment is just to say thank you for all the work. Over the course of 2 years, more than 40 touches at public meetings, a citywide mailer going to every household for the survey, a website that we stood up specifically to engage people on the comprehensive plan, and multiple just those public open houses that we held. It's just a lot of work for you and your team. And Christian, I know that it's been busy and it's been a lot, and I just wanted to say thank you for it.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to open the public hearing at 6:48 p.m. City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to speak? I asked that question tongue in cheek.
We do, Mayor Thompson. I'm going to first call on those that have signed up previously, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name when I do call on you. You will have 3 minutes each, and when your time starts, a light at the dais over there will turn green. At 1 minute left, it will start blinking, and at 30 seconds left, it will turn yellow. So the first person I have signed up to speak is Paulina Butler.
Look at it this way. You're not going to repeat anything anybody has already said. You're the first one. It's all your ideas.
Can you press the, yeah, there you go. Thanks, Becky. Oops, do it again. There you go. Thank you.
It's good. Okay, so I just wrote down some thoughts. In our Bothell neighborhood, I live in Queensboro. Up the hill, we represent a wonderfully diverse collection of humanity. Among us are a first-generation immigrant and family that have followed all the laws and rules and are working hard to raise a young family. Among us are brave single mothers that persevered against personal, financial, and societal headwinds in order to raise their children in a tight-knit neighborhood that they have lovingly nurtured. Among us are multiple families with members that have faithfully served and some that continue to serve their country in the armed forces. We have multi-generational homes Thank you. Where the grandparents play an active role in the lives of their grandchildren. We have members of the LGBTQIA community. We are white, Latino, Black, and blended racial backgrounds. We encompass a wide variety of faiths and beliefs. We have members that work in local school districts, tech, construction, mental health fields, nursing, manual trades. Cancer survivors, trauma survivors, many of us that live with chronic illnesses. I personally have neurodivergent children that require special support at Frank Love Elementary School and depend on the consistency and reliability of their existing neighborhood and school for their proper development. In many ways, we represent a rich tapestry and hard work, the very tenets that represent the goals that American society tells us to strive for. This property rezone was initiated with mostly performative attempts at notification, for none of us were properly notified or made aware of its existence until it was practically too late. This rezone will not only devalue the quality and value of my property, it will endanger my children's safety, and it will irrevocably displace us as, like my family personally, but from what I've heard, is we get pushed out of our homes by reckless but lucrative business transactions through their expansive gentrification. Our roads, spaces, and communities are not being planned with the needs of its existing community members, and we are losing the quality of our city. Your models do not account for we, the people living here, actually see or need on a day-to-day basis. Your language about grant eligibility sounds a lot like a veiled deal where you are willing to sell the quality of our life for your Bothell infrastructure goal points, which undoubtedly will be part of any future reelection campaigns. We, the members of this neighborhood, are being asked to, nay, we are being forced to bankroll a payday to conniving and secretive profit seekers. Hear me clearly on this. We who live in this neighborhood, we are the ones that live here, we shop here, we work here, we treasure here. And you're going to willingly swindle this from us, the Bothell citizens, in order to gift it to greedy and indifferent people that are not interested in the heart and soul of the city, let alone our small neighborhood. This is nothing more than a piece of dirt to developers and bullet points and mere bumps on your path. This ploy for corporate greed will surely create a nice payday. And it is happening at the expense of people that live in the neighborhood. And my light is yellow. Bothell claims that this is a place where you can come to for a day and stay for a lifetime, and I'm telling you, we are wanting to be allowed to stay living here for a lifetime, and we're committed to that. Thank you.
Your time is up. Next up, we have Josh King.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Josh King. That was awesome. Thank you. Mine won't be nearly as good, but that's great. My name is Josh King. I've been a Bothell resident for most of my life. I'm here today in the same way to voice my strong opposition to the proposed zoning changes for much of Bothell, from single family to multifamily housing, which could have densities up to 50 units per acre. While I understand the need to address housing availability and affordability in Bothell, I believe this drastic change in many of our neighborhoods would have a significant negative consequence for our community. I live in the Maywood Hills area, which is known for its established single-family homes, mature trees, strong sense of community. And rezoning this area for high-density development would fundamentally alter the neighborhood's community and character. Things that would seemingly go downhill would be increased traffic and safety concerns. High-density developments would bring significantly more vehicles, straining our existing roads, creating potential safety hazards for our pedestrians and children in the area. Lots of walkers up in that space. Maywood Hills already experiences congestion during those peak hours, and additional traffic would greatly exacerbate those issues. A strain on our local infrastructure and services. Schools and utilities and public services in that area truly are just not equipped to handle the influx of such a massive influx of residents. Overcrowding in our schools and overburdening our utilities would reduce the quality of life for our current and future residents, not only in Maywood Hills, but in our surrounding communities. Environmental impact. Increased density would result in the loss of green spaces, mature trees that are vital for our local ecosystems, air quality, as well as our residents' mental health and well-being. These natural elements, which are part of what makes Bothell and the Maywood Hills area specifically unique. Property value. Rezoning to high density in our area here would, in such a drastic fashion, would decrease our property values for existing single-family homeowners as the neighborhood's aesthetic and desirability would decline. While I support the thoughtful and strategic planning that our housing issues need, I urge the council to consider an alternative solution that does not compromise the character and the livability of our existing neighborhoods and our communities. There's options such as mixed-use development near our transit hubs, or redeveloping our underutilized commercial areas for housing that could achieve our density goals without displacing the identity of our established communities. I urge you to reconsider the zoning proposals and instead engage more fully with the residents to explore a more balanced and sustainable approach to our growth in Bothell. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Vivian Peterson.
Hi. These guys spoke so well, I don't even know how to follow that. I'm going to say a little more specific. Maybe it just could give someone an example of one street and how it would be impacted by this upzone. On our street, 219th Place, the existing infrastructure would not support additional density because it is already narrow and at its capacity as it is right now. We struggle just to have service vehicles come down our street for the various houses, including city-provided services such as snow removal and street cleaning. At this point, we have a situation where I've watched instances where with this particular property that we've been talking about that would be upzoned to potentially 12 units, people will stop there and block access to other neighbors in the area. And one particular neighbor who has had more than one situation where he was in need of emergency medical services would have been blocked from that situation happening if somebody had left this vehicle and gone into this property. We see this a lot. It happens more than once a week for sure. Just in this week alone, we've seen an increase in traffic just looking at the property. And if that's an indication of what we would have to expect with it being occupied after construction and just with a 12-unit capacity, it would put a strain on our existing residents. We have family members that have young children that we appreciate spending time playing in the cul-de-sac and celebrating 4th of July and all these things together. It is a community. It is very tight-knit. This would change the very structure of our neighborhood. We all move there because we love the tight-knit community that it is. It is peaceful. It is quiet. And I agree with the previous speaker that there are other ways to achieve this density by randomly picking open spots or going by simply lot size to develop these properties is not necessarily the way to go.
You push it again.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Yes, my name is Joyce Kayola, and my husband, just a little history. We live in Queensboro, and we moved from Seattle to Bothell in 1978, and we bought our home in Queensboro in 2003. We live at 30 218th Place Southeast. So we raised our children in Bothell. We helped with the care of 4 of our grandchildren in Queensboro. We love Bothell. We love living in Queensboro. We chose Queensboro because of the peaceful, quiet family characteristics of the neighborhood. The neighborhoods are not crowded. They are still very, very many trees, which we love. When we moved from Seattle, we felt like we were moving out to the country. We just learned last week about the proposed citywide rezoning of our properties from R7200 to R-M2, and we must have missed the mailer. So we understand that that would make our properties available to accommodate multifamily dwellings. We're not opposed to rezoning of the properties that are suitable for the change and could reasonably accommodate that growth. However, we are concerned, and this is the same property that Vivian was talking about, an unusually shaped property that borders on the south of our house. It also borders on the south, west, and east of many of our neighbors. And some of these neighbors wanted to come and comment, but they couldn't. And they are concerned. Some could not attend. The address is 107 219th Place Southeast. It's 0.55 acres. It's directly behind our home. It's a woodsy area now. The access to that property is a narrow driveway connected to 219th Place Southeast, which is around the corner, and it's a small cul-de-sac, very small. With the possibility of multifamily units being built on that property, there's a great concern for the negative impacts of property devaluation, overcrowding, increased traffic, problem parking, and from our vantage point from the north, an interference to the measure of privacy that we enjoy now. We understand that growth in our communities is desirable and that accommodations need to be made available for that growth. And again, we are not opposed to the proposed rezoning. What we are concerned about is the rezoning of the particular property. For the reasons I stated, we don't think this property is the right fit nor suitable for multifamily units, and there could be other properties out there that I feel the same about. So I thank you so much for seriously considering these concerns and listening to a nervous old lady.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Linda Schiefelbein. I hope I said that right.
Another nervous old lady. It's okay. Here we go. I'd like to thank you for giving me your attention this evening. My name is Linda Schiefelbein. I live at 105 219th Place with my husband, Jimmy. My husband bought that home in 1971. After we were married, 4 years later, we were married, and we've raised our family, 3 children, 1 grandchild, and numerous dogs and cats. We've enjoyed watching our children play baseball, football, skateboard, and ride their bikes and sled down the cul-de-sac on snow days. We chose the Queensboro area because of the privacy, cul-de-sac, single-family residences. It has met all of our expectations. Many of our neighbors have come and gone, but they lived in this neighborhood for much of the same reason. 9 families call the small, secluded, tight cul-de-sac home. It has come to our attention that this little bit of Shangri-La is possibly going to be totally dismantled. The home at 107 219th Place Southeast is up for sale. We all look forward to new neighbors and welcome them aboard. But it has been noted the realtor has highlighted this property for multi-unit residents. Developers don't miss this one. We realized much of the area is changing from R7200 to a RM2 zoning. The wave of the future duly noted. 107 219th Place Southeast is not a property that lends itself to these types of residences, apartment, condos, or duplexes. The obtuse shape of the property, to say the least, is awkward for any more buildings. This property is not on any streets, only accessible down a 145-foot narrow path, driveway, off the cul-de-sac. It is totally surrounded by 15 homes, single-family residences. Please realize that this RM2 zoning is not a one-size-fits-all. Adding more residences would not be acceptable to anyone in the area. I'd like to leave you with 2 questions. How would you accept the situation, and who will benefit? Thank you for your hearing ear and your response.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Schiefelbein.
Oh, he's not coming. That was Jim. Oh, yeah. He's sick.
Also, you don't have to be nervous. We don't bite. Thank you.
All right. Next up is James Fullerton.
righty. So, my neighbors, right? Some of them, most of them I never met, but apparently they're my neighbors. Okay, good evening and thanks for this opportunity to address the council. By way of introduction, I live in Queensboro, neighborhood of Bothell, very close to the northern border of the city. I've lived in this neighborhood for 27 years. I personally know people who have lived there since the late 60s when the area was first developed. This is to say Queensboro is not a transient neighborhood. People move in, they raise their families, and they stay on into retirement, like myself. I'm here to, tonight to express some concerns about the proposed rezoning plan, some of them along with everybody else. My particular concern that I want to raise is with traffic and parking issues that may be created as a result of this new zoning proposals. I live on Meridian Avenue South. When we moved there, Meridian Avenue was a quiet lane winding through the subdivision with the only traffic being people who lived there. There are no sidewalks. Apparently they were considered unnecessary in the original design of the neighborhood. Change came quickly about 10 or so years ago when massive new subdivisions were created just north of us in unincorporated Snohomish County. The developers were not required to improve any of the access roads or any of the infrastructure to handle the additional traffic. So, as a result, most of the traffic got shunted onto Meridian Avenue. I'm estimating that at least 75% of the traffic now passing my house is through traffic. They don't live there. I believe the proposed rezoning would only exacerbate this situation without significant infrastructure and road changes. However, to save time, I'll save that discussion for another day. Okay, among other things, the plan is to increase density on the available land in the city limits, right? Per the proposal, most lots in my neighborhood are required to support between 9 and 4 and 9 dwelling units to be compliant. As the housing density increases, so does the number of cars. In my observation, that virtually every household in America owns at least 2. So this is my concern in the evening, parking. Per the proposal, single-family homes get supposed to have 3. Multifamily apartments supposed to have 2 parking spaces. But for some reason, so-called middle housing, which let's to be clear is townhomes, only require 1 parking space and in some cases 0 depending on the distance of transit and lot size. I believe this will prove to be terribly inadequate for the following reason. Middle housing, the other cars will be parked in the street. One only has to go to Seattle, Lake City to see what middle housing does as far as not having enough parking. Remember, I said there's no sidewalks in Queensboro. Young children walk to school along the side of the street. Residents take their daily walks along Queensboro's winding sidewalkless streets. If the streets become lined with cars, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have, thank you very much. Next we have David Vliet, who is virtual. Mr. Vliet, can you hear us? David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, council members, for allowing me to time to speak tonight. My name is David Vliet, and I'm a former City of Bothell Planning Commissioner and Commission Chair. I spent 5 years on the Planning Commission working to preserve affordable housing and to protect the city's natural areas. During my tenure on the commission, we passed the first tree ordinance and clustering mechanism to preserve natural areas and new developments. I moved from Bothell in 2020, but still own a property in Lower Maywood Hills. One of the primary reasons for our move was the development pressures in downtown Bothell. Bothell has already gone above and beyond increasing housing supply as a core city. I'm joined tonight to urge the council to minimize the upzones being proposed in the soon-to-be ratified comp plan. There seems to be an upzone density creep with each passing comp plan. Many Bothell residents, like ourselves, steward their properties to provide habitat for the native flora and fauna. We actually witnessed flying squirrels on our property, which is less than 7,500 square foot, which also has hemlock, cedar, pine, and fir trees. With development pressures and upzones, these parcels are not going to have the ability to retain such native and significant trees. The loss of the natural elements is going to add to the city's future heat island effect. And loss of significant trees will also negatively affect the city's ability to handle stormwater. Not too long ago, we all experienced COVID and knew how bad it was to be kind of locked inside our houses. And we developed a very close relationship to the power and the benefits of the natural world. I urge you to please think about these things as you think about any of the future upzones that you plan to ratify. And thanks for taking your time to hear me tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have Randy Banneker. Mr. Banneker, I just paneled you in, so hopefully you'll be here in a minute. Can you hear us? Hello. Can you hear us okay?
Am I up?
All right. Yes, you are. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Thompson, Deputy Mayor Alcabra, and members of the City Council. My name is Randy Banneker, and I'm here on behalf of the 7,000 realtors of Seattle and King County. We are in strong support of the comprehensive plan and development regulation final draft. This has been a long and detailed process you and staff have gone through. We particularly want to thank you for your work on increased capacity for housing. The state handed you mandates in that area, tough mandates to increase your zone capacity, and you've worked really hard to make this fit for Bothell. Your commitment to diverse housing options, including middle housing, is essential for ensuring that Bothell remains an inclusive and vibrant community. Providing a range of housing types will not only meet the needs of current residents, but will also offer more affordable options to new families, young professionals, and retirees, contributing to a balanced and dynamic population. We urge a yes vote on both final drafts. And in addition, just thinking forward, we encourage the council to support staff, the permitting and development services team, so that it can put together a process in which building middle housing, especially ADUs and DADUs, is understandable, predictable, and swift, and again, particularly for existing homeowners to add units to their properties. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick Ewing.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Ewing. I served on Bothell City Council for 12 years. Regarding the comp plan and code amendments, a huge agenda packet was just made available Thursday, and its huge final EIS was just released yesterday. I strongly urge continuing the public hearing to a date certain rather than closing at the end of tonight's meeting. This is the only way to allow sufficient time for the community to digest this information and provide meaningful participation as it is required by the GMA. I first speak as a board member of the North Creek Heights Homeowners Association, which was developed in the late 80s under the planned use development process. Our HOA is unique in that it consists of 63 single-family homes and 114 apartment units, all located within a R9600 zone. The PUD process allowed a significant increase in housing density by allowing the reduced lot sizes and attached multifamily units. The number of single-family lots and apartment units are specified within our Articles of Incorporation and bylaws and also define the makeup of the HOA board. These requirements are prescribed in the title of our homes, recorded with the county, and they run with the land. Modifications to final PUD are covered under BMC 123210, located on page 281 of the agenda packet. Changes to the number of dwelling units is not allowed. Chapter 1507, lot unit subdivision, starting at page 387, need to be revised to prevent internal inconsistency within the code. WAC 6365 196-500 requires comprehensive plans and implementing development regulations to be internally consistent. So please, you need to add some changes to Chapter 1507 to make it clear that sometimes the lot unit subdivisions are not allowed in neighborhoods that were built under a PUD or that have CNRs that prevent this. This is a lurking problem that please don't lay this on the HOAs themselves to have to deal with them. Please add the clarification to the code to make it clear that in some places they will not be allowed. Changing topics, I was the mayor in 2004 when we dealt with our first home tent city, right? Big deal. We didn't have any codes in place, so I strongly support you getting the code in place to support it. I recommend a couple changes to make it stronger, to put in a definition of what a religious organization is, and that to also make it clear that it shouldn't be open to have tent cities on any property that a religious organization owns. Rather, it should be properties that have had a permitted
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. Thank you.
a permitted use or a conditional use approved. Thank you.
Mr. Swanson, can you hear me?
I think I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, I want to correct some factual statements, misstatements of fact. House Bill 1110, its population growth requirements are supposed to be taken from the Office of Financial Management. And I called the GMA folk in Olympia and got the actual populations growth that is in a spreadsheet that they've got. The bottom line is Bothell in the King County, Snohomish region is almost 30,000 residents over our requirement. We can sit still for 2 or 3 years and not risk violating state law. And in fact, in requiring the Office of Financial Management and the GMA charts to be the guiding population growth estimate, we use the Puget Sound Regional Council, which has no jurisdiction over us. It's just a club that we belong to and pay money into. And yet our planning commission used their population projections, which frankly are absurd, way out of line. The IRS states that Washington State is losing population. And in fact, the year that the election was approved, King County dropped by 1% that year. Why did we need all that extra housing? State Bill 1220 or 1228, the one that talks about demographic mix, well, that's only true with this caveat: don't damage the environment in doing it. And are we damaging the environment? You bet. We're paving over organic soils that have had 2,000 years of evolutionary development. We talk about saving CO2, and yet when the buses are, their low capacity is running through here, they're adding CO2 over a single occupancy vehicle trip. They also produce 200 times more tire wear, and yet there's only 3 people riding in the bus generally. We're damaging the salmon. We're damaging our trees. You can't tear down a 90-year-old cedar tree and cover over native soils that have thousands of years of evolutionary development. It makes the place smell. The actual soil sequesters carbon. So whatever you're doing, it's not right. Dr. Jill McIntyre stated clearly in her research that it's not water temperature that's killing the coho, it's tire dust, and we're going to kill them. We're going to kill lots of them. Not only creating a heat island downtown, near infrared reflection, which frees the mind and the spirit of all human beings, and buildings don't reflect near infrared. It's a health risk. You're not building people-oriented places. We can't be giving away a $16 million downtown property to Bopop. And
thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Swanson, your time is up. Thank you.
Correct the error, please.
Next, we have Ann Agard. She's here. While Ann's making her way to the podium, for those of you in the virtual audience, if you wish to speak to this item, please use the raise hand function, and I will call on you.
And you can keep walking.
You want me to come up?
Yep.
Yep.
Just takes me a little bit.
So if you're in the audience, in the virtual audience, and you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, and I'll panel you in. Thank you.
Copy to the secretary, please. Thank you. Ann A. Guard, 16524 104th Northeast. This is my fourth time going through the comprehensive plan process. First, I request that you change the wording, page 241 on the Bothell BMC 1214030, to match the definition that is in the House Bill 1110 regarding critical areas. And I have included that language in what I've given them. And the minimum density regulations do not apply to portions of a lot, parcel, or tract designated with critical areas under RCW 3670A120. This additional wording clarifies that the minimum density regulations are consistent with the middle housing regulations. I also request, as Patrick Ewing did, that you not close the public hearing this evening. The FEIS of well over 300 pages was issued yesterday. House Bill 1110 and House Bill 1337, Bothell's preferred alternative significantly exceeds the densities proposed in these bills. HB 1110 requires 4 units per lot, with 1 affordable unit unless a quarter mile from transit. Bothell's preferred alternative maximum base density for RM2 is 50 and a minimum of 25. House Bill 1110, assuming all units had 1 affordable unit, would require only 24 units, or 18 if no affordable units. Bothell's proposed maximum for this area is 2 times the middle housing requirements of House Bill 1110. I also want to ask that you clearly indicate what the target heights and floor area ratios are in the mixed-use density designations and the activity centers. I find no references in any of the downtown transition, downtown neighborhood, downtown core, or downtown gateway to the proposed height changes. Please clarify where and how these increased heights and floor areas are located. The projected failure of 104th Main Street and Kaesner Way intersection, as discussed by staff in their presentation on the transportation element, and the permanent possible closure of Main Street, and the increased densities in the areas north and west of downtown, make it clear that you cannot accommodate the transportation needs in the downtown area.
Thank you, Ms. Agard. Your time is up. Thank you. Next. I've got a raised hand from Shri in the audience, so I'm going to panel you in, and then we'll call on those here in the audience in the room. Shri, can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, even though I've been a resident for only the last 2 years, this is the first time I'm even hearing about this comprehensive plan. I did hear some reference to some surveys, websites being stood up. Honestly, I had no idea what was happening until recently when somebody pointed out to me that comprehensive plan was being conducted. And sure, there's a lot right next to us, which is now on sale with the potential for being rezoned. I want to echo one of my neighbors. I don't know that person who spoke regarding the issues on Meridian Avenue South. I just want to reiterate: if you have ever driven through a Meridian Avenue South, you'll realize it just cannot support any more traffic. There are no sidewalks. Like he said, kids actually walk on the streets, and we see that every day. And putting up rezoning this entire any area over here is you're just asking for more trouble for your constituents. Please answer to your constituents and not to the developers. And if you have ever driven down on I-405, I'm sure you've probably seen how the hill near Cold Creek exit has transformed into a barren hill with just homes on it. That's probably what's going to happen over here. I think the plan needs to be further looked into. I'm going to take a look at it too, but from what I hear, it seems like it's being hurried through the process. I hope that is not the case, and I would like the City Council to reconsider whatever is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to suggest a quick recess just to do a status check on our streaming services and see how things are holding up.
Will 10 minutes do the trick?
Let's do it.
All right. It's 7:27. We are going to take a break. We'll go 13 minutes. We'll be back at 7:40.
Recording stopped.
For a round number.
Tonight's meeting, what we'd be looking for is a motion to postpone to a date. So you would say postpone to next Tuesday, November, I need to do my math, 28th, I think? 26th at 8 p.m. We should not do it on Thanksgiving.
Well, we need to see if we have a quorum first. So I'm going to just go. Councilmember Dodd?
I can be there.
Deputy Mayor?
Me too.
Councilmember Curd?
I cannot guarantee that I will be there.
And Councilmember Mankey?
I can be present.
Should we just do next Tuesday? Should we check for a different day? Like, could we look at maybe this Thursday? Or are there other considerations?
Thursday.
We can do a quick check of making sure that the building is available.
Okay.
But what we will need to do is make sure that we know.
You guys, this is government at its finest. Yeah. We're trying to make sure we do the right thing and we make sure everybody's voice is heard. So we're bear with us, please. So one thing, we do have a requirement in terms of tonight, or on this agenda, I won't say tonight, 2 of the actions that the City Council is considering relates to information that we have to transmit to the county by the 27th of November. So as we select a date, the main thing would be is making sure that we pick a time before the 27th and are able to do that transmittal. You did ask about if we could do the 21st. Yes.
Everybody can watch me now navigate to our city website to check the events page.
Oh, I just did a quick survey up here, and I'm going to say save your time, because Thursday seems like it works worse for the folks up here.
All right. We also do have an Arts Commission meeting scheduled, so they will be in here.
Oh.
So next Tuesday.
I think next Tuesday it is.
All right.
Do you need a motion?
No, I don't think that's a motion. Yeah, I believe that the mayor is able to just note the adjournment to the time, just as we would at the end of a regular meeting, no motion required.
Okay, so when I do adjourn, do I need to say we're adjourning until next Tuesday at 6 p.m.?
Tuesday, November 26th at 6 p.m. at council chambers and online.
Yeah.
Mayor, just for clarity on the record, I think it would be helpful to just note that the public hearing will be continued until that time as well, since we have two things going on, an open public meeting and a public hearing.
I'm writing this down. And it is Tuesday. Councilmember Dodd, if you want to say something while I figure this out, go for it.
Sounds great. To everyone here, I think one thing that if this happens to be your first public meeting that you've realized is there's no back and forth communication when you're testifying at a public hearing. Please email us either individually. Our emails are on the city website. And we would love to talk with you. I think that is one thing that I mourn when we do take public testimony is we can't talk back and forth. I ran out to talk to someone I know. Queensboro is where I grew up, so I happen to just know him, and I used to babysit his kids. But it would be greatly appreciated. I'm happy. I realize we're coming up on holidays and we're trying to reschedule this, but I would be happy to have coffee with anyone or whatever you would like. So please know that we're not responding because we don't want to talk. It's just not at this meeting that we do that, and we all have emails, and I don't think it's a stretch to say we'd be happy to talk with you. I love that.
I appreciate that because we are also your neighbors. So we live here too. All right. So I am going to adjourn the meeting until Tuesday, November 21st at 6 p.m. November 21st. Did I say 26th?
26.
26.
It's 26, not 21st.
Always thankful for 14 people correcting me. Is it? Are you sure? All right. We're going to adjourn the meeting until Tuesday, November 26th at 6 p.m. here in Bothell City Council chambers. The public hearing that has been opened will be continued until then. And online. Anything else? All right. Adjourned.